Everything about Mega Man X screams action. The intensity of X's animations, the constant barrage of enemies, dynamic levels, clever bosses, the wide array of interesting weapons and upgrades, and of course the soundtrack that never lets up. Make no mistake, Mega Man X is a masterpiece, and in this review and retrospective I'll go back to its development at Capcom and deconstruct the elements that make it one of the greatest games of all time. Mega Man, or Rockman in Japan, is one of the most revered franchises in gaming. Mega Man 1 is unquestionably fantastic and has all the innovations that make the series great, but poor marketing and that notoriously hideous box art could have stifled the series before it began. Miraculously, Capcom decided to release a sequel in June of 1989. As it was for many gamers, Mega Man 2 was my entry point in the series. I played it at a neighbor's house and was instantly hooked. It was so polished, colorful graphics, fun animations, tight controls, a futuristic robot theme, open-ended stage selection, gaining boss abilities, the rock-paper-scissors mechanic for defeating them, and music so spectacular that 12-year-old me recorded it to cassette from my 13-inch TV. Gamers came to love the Mega Man blueprint, and Capcom knew it, quickly releasing Mega Man 3 in November 1990 and Mega Man 4 just 14 months later. But between those two releases, Nintendo launched the mighty Super Nintendo. Favorite NES series like Final Fantasy, Ghouls and Ghosts, Castlevania, and Contra were promptly superized for the SNES. But where was our beloved Blue Bomber? Capcom was still cranking out sequels on the NES, seemingly milking the formula to death. However, behind closed doors, the team at Capcom was hard at work, and Mega Man was about to get a lot more mega. Development on Mega Man X, or Super Mega Man as it was originally titled, was challenging from the start. In the Capcom Consumer Division, the Rockman series was the most dreaded. If you were assigned to it, you could kiss your freedom goodbye. The challenge was clear. How do you improve the structure and gameplay of Mega Man? How do you make something familiar, yet new, without alienating fans? Now that we were in the Super NES era, we began talks about the possibility of a new Mega Man. However, we did understand that we couldn't completely go against everything that had come before. So Capcom retained the basic formula, 8 selectable themed stages with quirky bosses and boss weapon acquisition, and while Mega Man's basic running and jumping mechanics were programmed to feel almost identical to NES iterations, they replaced sliding with the much more dynamic dash and added wall jumping, which anecdotally arose after Inafune kicked the wall in frustration during development. Early previews depict a white city level with enemies and set pieces that didn't quite make the final game. As for X's design, it was initially quite different. Back when the SNES was coming out, I was asked to give Mega Man a redesign, so I created this character. But I realized that this design wouldn't be accepted as Mega Man, so I had another designer create the new Mega Man. That task was left to Inafune's protege Hayato Kaji, and what a design it is. X is flawless, with clean lines, sleek subtle details, and shading that gives him dimension and a sense of weight. Every frame of animation conveys focused determination and forward momentum. This wasn't the NES. This was the Super Nintendo with an exponentially better microprocessor, richer audio, and 600 times the available colors. So development required rethinking everything. Level structure, enemy placement, control schemes, and boss design. Gone is the word man in every boss name. Instead, they were given animal themes, with moves and attacks fitting their species, and each one was designed to have a unique silhouette and color scheme. Developers took what worked from the original series, charged it up, and heightened the entire experience with new layers of gameplay, exploration, and upgrades. And on December 17, 1993, after a grueling development, Mega Man X exploded into an unsuspecting world. According to the story, Dr. Light created Mega Man X, but fearing the dangers of sentient robots, he sealed him in a diagnostic capsule for testing. During this time, Dr. Light presumably died, and decades later, archaeologist Dr. Kane found X's capsule, analyzed his design, and replicated it, creating an entire race of robots called Reploids. Unfortunately, some of them went maverick and began attacking humanity. Mega Man X begins in the midst of the conflict between the rebellious Mavericks and the Maverick Hunters trying to stop them. As X, you must blast through 8 action-packed and wildly diverse stages, destroy the Mavericks, and ultimately defeat their leader Sigma to save the human race from the threat. Classic NES Mega Man levels were flat and boxy, composed of horizontal or vertical sections and rooms connected by ladders and scrolling transitions. But Mega Man X's levels are angular and sloped, with vast open spaces perfect for X to cut through with his dash-jumping range. Each environment is crisp and colorful, expertly merging cyber-robotic and natural elements to give the game a distinct style. But what separates good games from great ones is the attention to details, and Mega Man X is no exception. Every level is polished with graphical flourishes that accentuate the theme of the Maverick that awaits you. Fluffy snow piles up to X's knees in Chill Penguin's stage, sparks flash across the floor in Spark Mandrill's power plant, and underwater currents distort the coral, kelp, and foliage background in Launch Octopus's ocean. Adding to these stage themes are the beautifully animated creature bots that populate them, like bat bots, seahorse bots, woodpecker bots, and axe-wielding wood-chopping bots. Then there are the amazing, meticulous backgrounds which often go unnoticed. Like the distant trees in Sting Chameleon's woods, which are lit with daylight at the beginning, but glow with the purple haze of evening by the end. Heightening stage themes even further, developers added cause and effect interconnectivity between stages. Storm Eagle's ship flies high above Spark Mandrill's power plant, but after defeating him, the ship presumably crashes into the plant, causing intermittent blackouts. Flame Mammoth's domain is a blazing inferno, but after beating Chill Penguin, the flames are frozen over, and the underground areas of Sting Chameleon's stage will flood after destroying Launch Octopus. These intricacies are completely unnecessary, but they give the game polish and make the entire world feel more believable. Music has always been foundational to the Rockman franchise, and Mega Man X raises the bar with upbeat, energetic tracks that put the rock in Rockman X. Most of it was written by Setsuo Yamamoto, but 4 other composers were brought in near the end of production to add their flair and finish it up. The end result is phenomenal, like the driving guitars and soaring melodies of Storm Eagle's stage. It really gets the blood pumping and completely captures the action and forward propulsion of the stage. And the rising strings and cutting overdrive of Spark Mandrill's stage. With pulsing electric bass and near constant drum fills, it clearly conveys the urgency of X's mission. From title screen to end credits, the soundtrack is brilliant. X starts with only his X-Buster arm cannon. His life bar is tiny and skill set pathetically meager, but by the time he faces Sigma, he's energized, upgraded, and fully equipped. As in the NES Mega Man games, the primary way to upgrade is to defeat bosses and gain their weapons. But in Mega Man X, these weapons go beyond simply being super effective against specific enemies. Not only can they be switched on the fly with the shoulder buttons, more importantly, you'll want to, because each one is fun to play with and situationally useful. Sometimes to access secret items, sometimes to pull off supercharged abilities, and sometimes they actually alter boss battles and bosses' physical appearance. A blast from the boomerang cutter, for example, will sever Flame Mammoth's trunk and Launch Octopus's tentacles, rendering certain attacks useless. An electric spark will shatter Armored Armadillo's armor. For this new Super Nintendo iteration, developers drew inspiration from RPGs, where character hit points, armor, and other gear are routinely upgraded, and I'm glad they did. By hiding heart tanks, sub-tanks, and suit upgrade capsules throughout the game, developers had found the perfect high-octane steroid rocket fuel ingredients the franchise's aging formula desperately needed. Each level has one hidden heart tank, which adds 2 bars to X's energy meter. 4 levels have hidden sub-tanks that can be filled and used to restore X's life, and 4, technically 5 levels, contain Dr. Light's capsules with game-changing suit augmentations. The dash upgrade gives X a sudden acceleration boost, which is not only one of the coolest looking animations in video games, it also dramatically increases his range and evasion. The arm cannon upgrade adds a second level of charge to the X-Buster and a fully charged secondary ability to all 8 Maverick weapons, opening up the game to awesome effects like invincibility. The helmet upgrade protects X from falling objects and allows him to break special blocks to access hidden areas. And lastly, the armor upgrade cuts the damage he takes in half. There is a 5th capsule containing the Hadouken from Street Fighter, but I categorize it as more of an Easter egg since it's unlikely that anyone would have ever naturally found it. To do so, you must get every item in the game, then go to Armored Armadillo's stage. On the final mine sled jump, climb to the top of the ledge, and then die. Keep doing this dark ritual until Dr. Light's Ryu-clad hologram appears. Now, when X is at full health, he can execute the super powerful Hadouken, which can kill bosses in a single hit. Down, forward, fire. Since his inception on the NES in 1987, the Blue Bomber has appeared in over 50 games and influenced many, many others. And of all the games in his prolific yet turbulent history, Mega Man X is arguably the best. But what makes it so amazing? It's the beautiful, dynamic environments and the perfectly themed creature bots that populate them. It's the arsenal of weapons and hidden upgrades. It's the animations, subtle, intense, and infinitely delightful. It's the relentless soundtrack. It's the fact that every single facet of the game was crafted with action in mind, and all of them were crafted with excellence. Through all the development challenges, the team at Capcom created an enduring work of art. Mega Man X is a masterpiece among masterpieces, standing proudly among the elite as one of the greatest video games ever made.